Hey, this is Stephen Amell, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends, the podcast. Don't fail your city.
The Union of Justice has fought evil for 90 years, but their time is coming to an end. Soon, the world must rely on their children for protection, for hope, for all mankind. This is Jupiter's legacy, as documented by Tomorrow's Legends. And now, here are your hosts, the Scarlet Speedster himself, the Flash, the Maid of Mischief Harley Quinn, and the Blue Beacon of Hope, X-Force 11.
Well, hello there. Gosh, we don't even have a name yet for our fans of this new show, but we are here to, maybe we'll talk to our listeners. Maybe our listeners can come up with something. I think when I listened to the beginning of Perry White's feedback, he may have a name for us or something similar.
Okay.
But we are here to kick off a brand new superhero series called Jupiter's Legacy. And this is episode 1, titled By Dawn's Early Light. And we certainly hope many of our dedicated fans will join us to try this one out. I mean, it's only 8 episodes, so if we can sit through it, you guys can sit through it with us. But I'm wondering, how much time, because we still don't know when Superman and Lois is coming back. So we've got this show on the docket right now. We may look at another show in between if we find out Superman's not coming until fall. So we'll figure all of that out. But you are here for Jupiter's Legacy, and with that, I am still the Flash, although I've been wondering about having a pseudo nickname just for this show. Since it's all new characters with all new names, everybody's new, everything's new, maybe I should go by Cyberhawk for the next 8 weeks, because I kind of like that. Cyberhawk, that's it.
Very nice. I'm going to stick with Harley Quinn because I'm unoriginal.
And I'm X-Force 11, flying into battle against Blackstar. And if we're choosing new nicknames for this run, I'm the Deacon.
The Deacon. Explain that one.
Well, I am a deacon in my church, and in our church it means people who serve, and figuring that the Utopian is big on faith and family values, I think it would fit right in well with the Union of Justice. So
I like it. Sounds good. Yeah, Cyberhawk is just a play off of my Cyber Tiger Productions, and I use Cyberhawk aerial photography from our drone, so I like it. It sounded kind of superhero name.
It does.
Reminds me of the Silverhawks.
Yeah.
Great 80s cartoon. So.
Yeah. And wait a second here.
Hello, Legends.
Gideon, you're with us.
Yes, Captain.
Oh, okay. So you're going to come along for this new ride in this new universe and just...
So it's business as usual then.
Okay. I will not be able to have any new clips for Gideon because she's not actually in this show, but... we'll have to see. We'll have to see if I can find some stuff for the show. There hasn't been anything that really caught my ear that I was like, ooh, that's a good sound clip to use. So we'll have to see. See what comes up. But let's get into it, guys. I'm feeling a little rusty here because we haven't talked superheroes in a while, but you are here with the Cybercast Network, which has a bunch of shows covering some of your favorite topics. Of course, you're listening to Tomorrow's Legends, which is currently waiting for Superman and Lois to come back, and that is why we're covering Jupiter's Legacy right now. We also have Dive into DC with Silver Vox and Green Butterfly, where they go deep into all your DC fanfare over there. Check them out. And then, of course, The Mandalore, where we cover all the Disney Plus Star Wars shows. So check that out as well. We got some news. It's been a while since we've talked to you guys about a lot of things, and there is some Superman and Lois news, is there not?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
There he is.
We interrupt this podcast for a special report.
Well, a lot of this information comes from Bitsy, either her Instagram or her X account. So the first bit of news is they started production, and they were saying that they were going to start January 11th, and they did. The info says that they're going to stop filming in April. So we still have no firm start date for when the series is going to start airing.
Yeah.
I'm still saying, May or early June, summertime. But who knows? They may start airing episodes while they're still filming. we don't know. It's 10 episodes, but that's the info there. But she has been throwing some pictures out, so definitely check out her Instagram. And 2 bits of episode news. So the first episode is called The End and the Beginning, and it's written by Brent Fletcher and Todd Helbing, and it's directed by Gregory Smith. And then the third episode is called Always My Hero, and this one's directed by Bitsy's grim co-star / husband, and I'm not even going to begin to pronounce his last name. His first name is David. But so check out her,
it looks like.
Yeah, that's something like that.
Okay.
But check it out. She's got some cool pictures. She had one up the other day of her and Tyler in reporter mode and some behind the scenes stuff, and with their trailers and different stuff. So keep an eye on that. And today's her birthday, so happy birthday, Betsy.
Happy birthday, Bitsy.
Happy birthday. Birthdays all around.
Cool. Well, I like that news is starting to come out. It means that they're, like you just said, they are working on the show, and they're starting to get some, social media and public buzz going for the show, which I think they want to do to, it's the last season, let's go out with a bang. But maybe, just maybe, guys, if we can hit the show hard and have, double the viewership, maybe they might realize it might be a mistake canceling the show. So
I don't know.
Or maybe someone else can pick it up. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on how final they finale it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, very true. I mean, I'm looking forward. We got so much to pick up from the way that show ended with Doomsday and Lex Luthor. Like, holy cow, I cannot wait to get back into it.
That's going to be
Definitely.
good.
Yeah, totally good. All right, guys. It's been a little while since we've talked. Let's get into our ratings for this new show, because I'm excited. I'm actually pretty excited.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
Or is that the Union Hall, or what?
Yeah, the Union of Justice.
Yeah.
Who knows?
All right, X-Force.
So I gave this one 8.5 new hero tales. This was bold. You take a chance and you create a new hero mythology, not bound up in DC or Marvel lore, but coming from the Image comic book series. So, different, take on things. And you really take a tough look at the reality of heroes living in the real world with power, with influence, the legacy, and so much more. And some of the makeup and the wigs, were a little bad. The CGI is not stellar, but still better than some. But overall, it was a solid start for me. It drew me in, and it left me wanting to know more. And I kind of like the split narrative of seeing the events in the past and the events in the present. I think it works well for this because it gets you wanting to know more about each of those things. And so I like how it works, kind of like Arrow did for so long. And so I'm just really ready to see where this takes us.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I gave this one 7.5 flawed heroes. I agree with a lot of what Jeff said. I thought this was very grounded and real in a way that actually most superhero shows are not. They explored some bigger questions, like what it actually means to be a superhero and how easily you can cross a line. I'll say the line because we'll probably touch on this throughout our discussion, but I like how they kind of established that and brought it up, and it was like kind of at the forefront. And then I like that they're also touching very quickly on like the legacy part of the name, that we're highlighting the relationship between Sheldon and his kids and kind of what this means to have generational superheroes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with both of you guys. I'm giving this one 8 new perspectives. And like I kind of hinted on, I have to admit that as soon as this show started, I got kind of excited to be trying something brand new that isn't in the Arrowverse, that isn't Marvel, that isn't anything that we know. I as soon as it kicked off, I was like, oh wow, yeah, I am going into this completely blind. I know nothing about this stuff, so that really got me excited to see what some other people can create and show us in the superhero realm of things. And I actually thought everything looked great. Jeff, I don't know. I thought the aging makeup, I thought they looked good when we saw between past and present. I thought the aging makeup and the hair and the costumes are what I really love. Like these superhero costumes, they were colorful. They were what I've always imagined when I create superheroes in my head. Like, you got all the different colors and the armored boots and the armored gloves and I mean, because when you compare these guys' costumes to the Arrowverse costumes, the Arrowverse costumes are actually really kind of dull, like just simple, I guess is a better word. They're just kind of like one piece, where these guys had just gauntlets and bracelets and big collars and all this different stuff to make this really like a bulky kind of suit. But I thought it looked cool. I thought the effects were pretty decent, kind of better in some ways than what Arrowverse was able to afford. I like to make fun of the Flash because quite often the Flash's effects were just subpar. And I thought there were some pretty cool. I see what you're talking about. There's some times where you noticed it was like, but other times, like when the superheroes were flying, I thought it looked great. Every time we saw a superhero take off, I thought it looked really great. So and I'm guessing for the first one, they had to work some kinks out and figure it out as they went. So. But like you guys were saying, it had a slight edge to it. There was swearing, there was dark undertones with the violence of it all, but it doesn't push the boundaries as far as The Boys goes. If you guys watch The Boys on Amazon Prime, that show is ultra violent and ultra gritty, and you draw a line and they take a running leap and go over it. This one didn't. This one just kind of walked the line a little bit with its violence and with its swearing. And so it kind of just gave it this edge that we're not used to in the Arrowverse. I got a lot of questions about everybody that hopefully we get answers to as the show goes forward. But like you guys said, an intriguing start that has me invested to finish it now. It is only 8 episodes, so I'm here. Let's get through it. Yeah. And let's do that while we talk about the show.
Gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe.
We're going to get into our talking points. So what I wanted to kick the show off with, because maybe we have some listeners that are tuning in just to hear us before they actually check the show out. Maybe they want to hear what we're going to say and see if that primes them to want to go watch it. And I know we've got some of our listeners with us, but I thought it'd be great to do a bit of a character breakdown, at least the characters that we got introduced to so far, and just kind of talk about the names and the actors playing the parts, and if we recognize them or anything from anywhere. So obviously the main character, the one that's I think everything is centered around, he's called the Utopian, and that is played by Josh Duhamel. And I like that we're getting human names and hero names. So Utopian, otherwise known as Sheldon Sampson. So pretty cool. And you guys should recognize Josh Duhamel. He was in a lot of the Transformers movies. He's done quite a few things, but yeah. Then after that, we hear about Brainwave, and Brainwave is played by Ben Daniels, who is Walter Sampson. That is Sheldon's brother. So we hear him be called Uncle Walt in this. And then we have Lady Liberty, who's played by Leslie Bibb, otherwise known as Grace Sampson. She is the wife of Utopian, so Lady Liberty in Utopian, which I thought was pretty cool. She was very colorful when we saw her costume. Mm-hmm. Very American. And then we get their son, Brandon Sampson, who is otherwise known as Paragon, and that guy's played by Andrew Horton. And we get the main bad guy called Blackstar, played by Tyler Mane, and otherwise known as Dr. Bendal. So that's Blackstar. And then we have also heard name drops of Skyfox, who is known as George Hutchins. And that one excited me because as soon as I looked in the credits, like, oh my gosh, that is played by Matt Lanter, who was Anakin Skywalker for all the Clone Wars, all the animation that we cover over on Mandalore. That is Matt Lanter. He is here getting to actually act in front of the camera.
Yeah, and he was great in that, and he did an amazing job on Timeless, the series on NBC, the time travel show. He was great on that, and So
He's
yeah,
very cute, I must say.
We have a fan.
yeah, and yeah. The
I know he
interesting
does a lot of voice work, but
Yeah, he
like, put him in
does.
front of
He's
the camera
actually-
somewhere.
yeah, he's doing Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earth, the
Ooh.
animated movie that's coming out this
Yep.
year. He's playing Ultraman, so
Oh, nice.
which is like the other version of Superman on the alternate Earth.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Nice. Yeah, he's great. Great voice actor too. I mean, he made Anakin win me over as favorite character on that show. So
Huh.
Yeah.
He lives in Atlanta, or grew up in Atlanta, rather.
well, there you go, Atlantan boy. And then the last one that I really wrote on the list here was Chloe Sampson, the sister or daughter of Utopian and Lady Liberty. She's played by Elena Camporis, and they never dropped a hero name for her. So I have a feeling, which we'll talk about it, she may not have become a superhero based on this episode. So all we know is her name is Chloe.
Yeah.
Anybody else you want to add to that list, Jeff?
we got small cameos by other people that we'll get to see more in different episodes because they name dropped a bunch of the heroes and things like
Yeah.
that. So we'll get to them as we go.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought I'd just give a rundown of the quick character list, and yeah, away we go. Where are we going to start us off?
So I kind of broke this up into the past and the present since we were going back and forth. And so I will start off in the past.
Makes sense.
So we start off in the near past. So Sheldon / Utopian is teaching his kids, like we mentioned, Chloe and Brandon, the rules about being a super and living by a code. And it's refreshing to see a new take on being a hero and how it's easy to make the bad guys, quote unquote, into others and not real people. And so he's really talking about how, everybody's a person and how that code helps them not do that. So it was an interesting take on, teaching your kids about that and how to be a super at that young age.
Yeah, and I actually thought this was quite a bit of a different look than how maybe most superhero shows usually present villains. I mean, usually they're just very much presented as they're the bad guys, they're doing bad things. And I feel like very few shows or comics or, incarnations, whatever you want to take a look at, really kind of take the time to make this distinction that the villains are also like humans too. I mean, and I even feel like we do this in real life too, like criminals, people that have gotten on the wrong side of the law, like we're automatically kind of viewed as a little bit like less than.
Yeah.
So
That's a good point. Yeah, very few times do we see villains actually looked at as people that maybe just made some bad choices. And
right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
if they maybe were just shown love or compassion or support, maybe they wouldn't have gone down this route, and maybe giving them a little bit of that might actually bring them back around and not be so villainous. So it is cool. I do agree with you guys, like that, because right off the bat, Utopian is like, we don't kill. He's, like, I don't care who he is. I don't care what he's done. Let's just knock him out and put him in jail, and we'll deal with him and we'll figure it out. Like, he was very, very strict on that rule. Like, we do not kill. And, like let's just fight them and deal with it. Like it's cool. It was a neat, maybe neat's not the right word. It was just a surprising look with how serious he was about it, because he was adamant. Like,
Yes.
there's a line we don't cross.
Yeah.
Yes, I have some notes coming up about that later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we jump back to 1929 and we learn that Sheldon's family was in the steel business before the Great Depression and the stock market crash.
Yeah.
Sheldon and his dad are more about people than the money. They're interested in growing the business and making a difference for the people that are employed with them. We get to see that really shown by Sheldon's walk through the factory and talking with people and getting to see him interacting with people. And so they're really about that. And, kind of contrasting that with, his brother, who is about the people, but he sees the business side of it. Walter sees the business side of it. And so you've got this juxtaposition between the two of them. So in that one scene, you give a dynamic between this father and his two sons and seeing how they're doing life together.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, kind of understanding this about his background and kind of about his upbringing and really like where we see his origin and where he started, like this makes a whole lot of sense to me that he's going to have this extremely strong moral code that he's kind of living by later in life as a super, because it's probably not that different from how he was raised, by his own dad. And so that was not surprising to me, although we'll get into a little bit more on like the details of the moral code and all of that once we jump back to the present. But just like a few notes about like the brothers and kind of like the differences. I did think it was very interesting that they had them kind of still remain very close. I mean, we see them to be very close in the present, but they are very different. And I do feel like Walter was very business savvy, and like he could see the writing on the wall and he knew like what was about to happen. He was trying to talk them out of like all these different things. And so it did set up kind of like an interesting conflict for the three of them in the past.
Yeah, and just to add to it, again, a completely different perspective than I think we're used to seeing. But you go back to that time period when industry was booming and everything was just starting to grow and explode. There is so many business leaders or CEOs or whatever you want to call them that they only cared about making the mighty dollar and build, more money. And then here we see Utopian's dad. He's like, no, we're creating jobs for people. I'm here to take care of the little people and make sure that our workers, good men, have jobs that can take care of their families. And we even see it when Sheldon / Utopian is walking in the beginning and he's shaking everybody's hands and he's saying, hey, how you doing? And how's the wife and how are the kids? And, and then in that time period, like African-American people, they were not treated equally. And yet he walked right up to two of them and shook their hands. Hey, how are you guys doing? Did we take care of you okay? And like he was just as concerned about them as he was all of his white workers. And it was like, wow, between him and his dad, like what a completely different persona than you would expect to see from this time period about a steel company that's providing work for half the city. I did not expect to have that type of attitude towards the workers, and it was really, really refreshing to see, and it was actually really nice. And like you were saying, it allows us to understand the Utopian in the future, why he is the way he is. Like he had, I guess we'll talk about more, but his moral code was ingrained in him from his dad from a long time ago. And
yep.
It didn't seem to take with his brother as much, but I have a feeling we're going to see that transition because his brother's still with him. They still have a good relationship in the future. They didn't part ways and become, estranged from each other. So I'm sure we'll get that story as we get more flashbacks. But yeah, it's unfortunate in the history we see. Like Walter saw what was happening, and when the market crashed, he's like, I knew it. I told you guys to pull out. And I mean, it was just, I can't imagine what that time was like. That's an unbelievable amount of stress, and how many people lost everything. I mean, we even see it with their dad. Do we want to talk about that here since we're in the past?
Yeah. And yeah. So I just said that Sheldon's dad shaped him, like we've talked about, but his death crushed him. I mean, his dad is looking out over the city that they largely helped build, and he's just feeling the weight of all those decisions, and I'm sure the weight of all of those employees that are dependent on them just sitting on his shoulders, and he can't take it. And it's very true of a lot of people during that time that, especially business leaders who lost it all, they committed suicide, and we see him do that right in front of his son. It's crushing just to see that, and I'm definitely I really liked how in this series they parallel between the past and the present, the stock market and everything going, because here's this guy whose dad was crushed by the stock market crash, and he's seeing the stocks crashing now, and he's wondering what's going on. So it was just wild to see, and I thought just powerful in shaping his life.
Yeah, and again with his dad, like it wasn't so much the loss of the business, loss of the money. He was more concerned about how many families are going to be ruined by this. That was his main concern. And like, look at this city. I helped build the city. All these people I've provided a living for, and now we've lost it all. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
It was hard. I mean, even that whole scene was tough. Josh Duhamel, I've never really seen him get to act. And this was a moment where he got to show a lot of emotion. He's mostly just been an action hero, and that doesn't take a lot of emotions. But he really showed some emotion in this, which I was surprised to see. It was good.
Okay, I gotta ask you here. How does he pronounce his name? Because I've heard it Duhamel, and you're calling it Duhamel.
Oh, I actually don't know. I've always thought it was Duhamel. Am I wrong? That's what it looks like to me.
I have absolutely no idea. I'm not very familiar with his work.
Yeah, I'll look on IMDb while we're talking.
Yeah.
But yeah,
How do you say his name?
Yeah. So I'll go in here and see
but
if it gives
still,
us. Yeah.
tough scene.
Yeah.
Really, really tough scene in the past there for sure.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And
that was crushing to watch, because as soon as he was up on the roof, I was like, I know exactly where this is going. Oh, it was heartbreaking.
And I think that probably that moment also shaped Utopian too, because in the future, he's not a very happy person. And I think he is, and we see that he's overprotective, and we're going to talk about all that, but I think a lot of that comes back to what happened in this moment.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Probably.
Yeah, it is. And, we do get some introductions there. We see briefly, we see his friend George there on the street. We do get some small introductions of folks there on the street. And so that we'll get to see some in present day. So
George, aka Skyfox.
Okay, let's see. Name pronunciation. Okay.
While you're looking that up, like, I don't know, for those of you that do eventually get to the video, once I get this up, we've got new backgrounds for this, and it's kind of funny. Jeff is surrounded by the heroes. He's in the Union of Justice Hall, and he's got the heroes all behind him. It's kind of cool looking.
Yeah, let's see here.
I think we're all in the hall. We're just in different
angles. Yeah.
Angles.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're looking up at like the hologram thing, and then mine, I've got the dude seated at the table here.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of like an aerial view almost.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Cyberhawk flies, man.
Yeah.
Hey, fitting.
Yeah.
Fitting. We didn't even intend for that.
Nope.
So they're saying Duhamel, so we'll go with that. So.
Duhamel. Okay.
Yeah.
Duhamel. I gotta change years of that. Oh man. Okay.
All right. All right. So let's jump to the present. And
all right.
The present world is in chaos, basically. There's villains and supervillains abounding. We've got Brandon, aka who's grown up to be Paragon. He's learned from his father, but he's not much of a match for Iron Orchid, who's the villain who knocks off the other villains with her tech powers, I guess.
The generic bank robbers, yeah.
Yeah. So she comes in and says, "No, I'm robbing this."
Before you go too, like, I actually liked the bank robbers. They were all wearing monkey masks.
They were,
like,
yeah.
That threw me at first. I was like, are those actually like ape?
Yeah, like Planet of the Apes
reality until you start. I was like, okay, no, it's just masks.
You're right. It looked like Planet of the Apes type of apes.
I wonder if that's what the masks were like meant to be from. Like
well, one of them
Planet
looked like it.
Apes.
One of them looked like Caesar from Planet
Yeah.
Apes. Yeah, and then they had a mandrill and they had a gorilla. So it was actually really cool. It just surprised me, but pretty cool. I've never seen that before from normal bank robbers. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then
You see presidents a lot.
yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. But Iron Orchid, like, holy cow! That's where I thought some of the effects were cool. Like she flicks a switch and the mask just kind of, the helmet just builds around her, like it's like nanotech or something. I don't know, but she was pretty cool. I was trying to look at her. Okay, what kind of powers is that? Maybe we can talk about that as we get introduced to all these characters. What do you think her powers were? Because she seemed to build this holographic crystal around her fists, and then she could fire things from that.
I felt like she was pure tech. That was just my take on it.
Okay, pure tech. Yeah.
I don't think she has powers at all. I think it's just tech.
Yeah, I mean, it could be both. It could be there are I know in the Marvel universe there are mutants like Forge and others who have the ability to interact with tech and build stuff and do things like that. So it could be that it is tech, but her powers allow her to kind of shape it or things like that. So I'm just I'm not sure. So
Yeah.
I don't think we're gonna get any answers because it's only listing one episode for the actress.
Oh.
So she doesn't. I was gonna say I felt like they kind of buttoned her up. I think she was just kind of like
Yeah.
an intro to get her feet wet into the universe.
I'll throw in the Facebook group both the Jupiter's Legacy wiki and also the comic side of stuff, so people can take a look. And because she's probably one of those villains that may have more of an arc in the comics than
I didn't even know this came from a comic book, so that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was neat. She was cool. I like her attitude. She was just like, whatever, don't give a crap. And and I like how she was just picking on Brandon. She's like, we don't have language on the show very much, but she's like, you're a dick. And she kicked his butt pretty handily.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I did think she was fun. I liked her sass. I enjoyed that. I did kind of feel like this was a little bit of the classic I must prove myself as the hero storyline. So I think it's not bad. I mean, certain storylines are tropes for a reason, right? I mean, they work. But yeah, that definitely is how I was feeling. I mean, and that's how we're kind of introduced to like grown up Brandon as his superhero personas, trying to win the day, prove himself.
And show up.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, we'll probably talk about it as this episode goes on. Like I see where you were feeling in this moment, but I think as the story goes on, we find out that he's feeling like his dad needs to retire. He's not going to be able to do this for long, and that's why he feels obligated. He has to carry on the legacy. He's carrying that burden. And that's why, even though he might not be fully ready to be a full-on superhero and lead the team, he's jumping into like, I got to do this now because I don't think Dad can do this for much longer.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I don't know that we have it in the notes, but there's no secret to these heroes. They're public.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there's no secret identities.
You have that on the next line.
Okay.
Oh.
After this battle,
Yeah.
after let's wrap up this battle. And then,
Yeah. So, yeah.
if you wanted to, or we just move right into that. I don't care.
Yeah,
Just
I
letting
mean,
you know.
I was just gonna say, we get to see a little bit later that time and the battles really left their scars on Utopian. We get to see him with his shirt off, and you get to see the scars and that kind of stuff. But he steps in, saves his son, and then is having regrets later. But
Well, and here's the other thing: is these heroes bleed. They're not impervious and invulnerable. They were all bleeding and getting broken. They're not all Superman. So I enjoyed that too. Yes, they have powers, but when they get beat down, they're not always getting up.
Yeah, and they all have weaknesses, and some of them are stronger, can heal more. And it's interesting if you look at the the wiki and things like that, their powers give them long life.
Glad you brought that point up. Keep going.
Yeah.
Well, we will come back to that.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
We will come back to that.
Okay.
This is all, we're kind of really jumping, but it all comes in.
Yeah, okay. But I was going to say that the point I was going to bring is their powers kind of determine how long they live. Mm-hmm. Like some of them can live are slated to live longer than others. So
interesting.
It's neat that, you know, you got all these different powers, but you do have that vulnerability of being able to be hurt and even killed. So yeah it's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So. Wow. Okay, good. Hopefully we're coming back to that age thing.
Yeah, we will.
I had a couple well, one question I can ask right now is, what year is the present time? And did you catch that anywhere in the episode? I don't know what year we're supposed to be in.
I didn't catch it. I mean, I distinctly got at the very least, a 2020s vibe, because that's when the show was dropped.
Or
released, you know what I mean?
Chloe says something about 120 year.
Yes, she does. About not carrying 120 years worth of baggage.
So like 1920 to 2020 would be like, you know,
100 years,
100 years, and say, you know
120 years from 1929 would be 2049.
Okay, so maybe
but
we're
like
a bit in the future.
But like if she's thinking about her dad's age before he got the powers, so like, but he wasn't like, maybe he was in his 20s. Maybe that's what she's saying. He was in his 20s when he got his powers. And so for him, he's been alive for 120 years. So,
okay, I gotcha.
So I would say in the 20s, you know, the 2020s.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
That's pretty much modern.
Check. And that's one of the mysteries. I don't know if you have that in the notes. That where did they get their powers from? Because they got them when they were adults. Right?
Yeah, we that hasn't been revealed yet. So
that has not been revealed.
Which is a great mystery. I'm like, whoa, like because we see the flashbacks of him and they're all adults, and he doesn't have his powers yet in those flashback scenes. So, what did they do? Was it experiments? Was it crashing into something? Was it chemical spills? Like all the normal superhero tropes that give people powers.
Yeah, we've got to watch the episodes to see.
Yeah, but that's what I mean.
They're going to give it to us.
That's part of the mystery that I was hooked. I was like, oh, how did these guys get their powers? Cool, because obviously the kids, it was genetically passed on to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
But how did the adults get them to begin with? So, cool.
Yeah. So, in this world, the heroes don't have secret identities. They have to live with the fame and the threats because Blackstar calls out Sheldon's name in the TV footage.
Yeah.
And you have, you know, later on at the club, you have everybody gathering around to kind of watch the guys there in the club. So and their hall, their Union of Justice hall is the old steel building. I mean, so there's nothing, you know, that's secret about these heroes, and so it's definitely different than what we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and I feel like that would definitely change things when everyone knows that you not only that you are a superhero, but they know exactly like who you are. And so that's just like a lot bigger table stakes, because if they know who you are, then they can figure out where you live. And like it just adds in a whole layer of things that our more traditional superheroes don't usually have to deal with, because that's the whole point of having a secret identity, right? So I think this piece will be interesting to see like what they do throughout the season / series, like with this concept, if they maybe take it a little further. And like show any of that. I think that could be interesting. It really does remind me a bit of Watchmen, although in Watchmen their real identities were still secret, but it's just the whole fame part of it and the way that like superheroes were huge celebrities, and like just everything about that part of it kind of really reminds me of Watchmen's take on that.
Yeah. Well, it made me think too of like the Iron Man movies when he says, "I am Iron Man, here's my address," and within the same day he got attacked. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so this made me think about that. Like, wow, like the entire world or whoever knows about them knows they're real people, they're real personas, and where they live, and all that kind of stuff. But what I liked about it is that the town, the people around them, just seem to accept it, and they're just okay with it. There's like, yeah, Sheldon's my friend. I work with Sheldon at the company, but hey, yeah, he's Utopian. That's pretty cool. Let's make sure you're back in time for our ball game tonight. We got to play at 6. Like it's, and same with the kid when, like you said, Brandon was at the club. He just met one of his buddies, and he's like, "Hey, man, we haven't seen you out in a long time. Like, you got to keep partying with us. What's going on?" Like, everyone just seemed to be, life is normal with these people being heroes, and it's a different take that we haven't seen before. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, we got just a little bit of it from the Bizarro world.
True.
In Superman and Lois, because their identities were public there. Yeah. But this is a whole lot different exploration of it. So so I'm interested to see where they'll go.
Yeah. Yep.
For sure.
So we get this cool conversation between Sheldon and Grace in the kitchen, and basically they reveal that they've been married for 60 years. So evidently, like we said, long life comes with these powers.
Yeah. I see. Now, I found this really interesting because once I realized like he was supposed to be in his like early 20s in 1929, I was like, okay, so longevity has to come with those powers. Like they didn't exactly like spell that out yet. I don't know if they will, but it's kind of obvious just based on time stamping certain things.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, like because Chloe says to Brandon about not having to carry 120 years worth of baggage. So it's not like a secret. Like this is kind of like well known. As we said, everything's out in the open. They're like how long they live and like their powers, like everything about them seems to be public knowledge, which is not something we're used to dealing with in a superhero series. So
no, and it's fascinating, and it's unfair. Like, what an advantage to have that you just get to outlive everybody. Like, you think about it in a business world, and just so many different aspects of life. It's unfair that you can outlive everybody by 50, 60 years. It's a crazy advantage, but of course I would love to have that. I'd love to be able to live for 200 years just because life's short as it is. So it's interesting. And like you were saying earlier, Jeff, I wonder what, like you said, certain powers give certain amounts of longevity. So I'm kind of curious if they're going to visit that and tell us a bit more why or what causes that, and if using powers maybe shortens it. I don't know. It's curious.
The interesting thing that I was looking at is Grace. It was saying because of her powers, she would live like maybe 1,000 years.
Oh my gosh!
And Sheldon would live another couple decades, but it's because of their power sets being different. And
she does look younger than I did notice that she does look a bit younger than him, not like,
but she still had the gray hair too, though.
She did. I mean, not like creepy younger, but she definitely, I feel like they gave her a more youthful look, whereas they went heavy on the aging makeup with Sheldon.
And I think it's really cool that they are still aging. It's just much, much slower. So it's kind of interesting to see, whereas like we've seen other hero stories where they're long lived, but they don't look like they're aging. They just look the same age. So
Well, and that leads to the question then, are the kids aging slowly? So is Brandon and Chloe actually 65 years old, but they're still acting as teenagers going to high school and stuff? Like
I kind of get the idea that maybe once they hit a certain age, then it will slow down. Because I mean, I don't know that flashback scene of the two of them where they're young. It doesn't look like extremely old. So it doesn't it doesn't look like
the 50s or something.
Yeah. So they talk about Chloe being in her 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they may just age slow from a certain point. Like they go through puberty and finish growing like a normal human would, and then everything slows down, is my impression of it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
No. But it's kind of interesting because we've got Sheldon and Grace been married for 60 years, and then they waited to have kids later in their lives. So you've got the business of supering keeping them from being married for a while, and then also the business of supering keeping them from having kids until later in life. So it's interesting to kind of look at the realities of being a superhero. And I guess if you know that you're aging more slowly, there's not as much of a push. So
not as much of a rush. Yeah. Hey, we could have fun for 50 years before we think about kids.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. It does change, I guess, your progress through life, knowing there's no rush to buy a house. There's no rush to, like you said, have a kid or start a family or get married. Like I can't even imagine having that much extra time. Like I'm starting to get very envious of these people.
Yeah, I think we all are.
But I like this dinner prep scene that we get here, but we get Sheldon is really lamenting that even though Brandon wants to take over the family business, he's not ready, and he thinks he's too emotional.
Yeah.
And you get this impact of it, of wanting that next generation to take over, but not thinking that they're ready yet. So
yeah, I like the implications of this, but the thing that bothers me about this scene is you'd think he'd be more careful about like what his son can overhear, because he obviously has super hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if he's home, like, why are you having this conversation? Because he can hear every word. And I feel like that was almost done intentionally. Like he wanted him to hear it, and I don't really like that. I don't go for that type of like hard-nosed, tough love parenting. And so I that took Sheldon down a notch for me. I was like, that's not cool. But yeah, clearly you can kind of tell by Brandon's reaction, like this whole burden of legacy is definitely weighing him down. So he's definitely kind of bearing that right now.
That's an interesting point, because I actually wondered, maybe he doesn't know that Brandon is within hearing range. Like maybe he didn't know he was sitting on the roof. But then
I would assume he'd know his entire power set, and he's got to be somewhere in the house, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Maybe he didn't know he was home yet for dinner. Like I didn't know what was going on there. But your point about him, maybe meaning for Brandon to hear that's interesting, because if you look at how Sheldon was behaving this entire episode, like he's very blunt, very direct, and very forward about you suck, you're not ready, and no, don't do this. Like he's very, very black and white with his rules. So maybe he's having a talk with his wife. He's like, yeah, our kid ain't ready. Maybe he doesn't care if he hears it or not. He's just like, whatever, he's not ready, and that's all there is to it. Done.
Yeah. Well, that's definitely true. But
yeah.
But I found it interesting, like, even though Brandon overheard that, and even though they have a few father-son confrontations arguing about these things, his son still, in the other scenes that we've seen, is standing up for his dad. Still holding up his ideals and saying and defending, no, this is what dad has done for his whole life. We need to continue that. And it's okay. I understand why, like, he just seems so understanding and accepting of the way his dad is. That's just who he is, but he's my dad, and I got to continue this. It's pretty,
I think he believes in the mission, and so he's putting the mission first, and maybe slightly conflating that with his love for his dad.
Yeah.
That's
a good way to put it.
Yeah, totally agree there.
Yeah.
So on the opposite side of the coin, we've got Chloe, who is dealing with her powers through drugs and rebellion, and you see this dinner scene, and honestly, it's just heartbreaking to see them she and her dad lashing out at each other, because there's love there, and he wants to be proud of her. He's taking interest in her life. He wants to get through to her. He just doesn't know how. But they are just bumping heads the whole time, and it's just rough.
Yeah, I agree that it was a bit difficult, like, to watch at times, because, like, on the one hand, I mean, he was trying, but he just kind of won't let go of his own ideals. I mean, it became, like, very clear they don't see eye to eye and they don't agree. And I think thinking about this whole concept of them having a longer life and potentially when they had kids, I think the generational divide is actually even greater between Chloe and her parents than it is in a normal family dynamic. Normally, you're like one or two, like what, 1-2 generations removed from your children in terms of, like, you know, placing people in buckets. But, like, her parents are the silent generation, whereas she's basically Gen Z. And I'm like, whoa, like, could you legit imagine a Gen Z being parented by like our grandparents and great grandparents? Like, it just
tough.
It's just such a huge difference. I mean, I'm even thinking about differences between Gen X and Gen Z, or Gen X and millennials, and, like, it's all kind of like every generation there's like a great divide and, like, bigger differences. But, like, I can't imagine having parents so far removed idealistically from your current expectations and generational things. So, I mean, that's, like, crazy to me. Crazy.
Yeah, I hear you there. And it's I mean, watching them lash out at dinner time, at first I'm just like, man, Chloe, like, shut up. Like, you're being so mean to your dad, and he's just trying to, you know, help you focus and go get on the right path in life. But it surprises me. What I wanted to bring up is it surprised me that is where the relationship went, because what we didn't talk about in the past is the scene with Brandon and her as little kids when they're playing superheroes running around the park. And she thought she, you know, shot her friend with her laser eye vision. He's like, no, you missed. She's like, I didn't miss. And she got so mad and she screamed, and she obviously has some type of banshee power because she screamed so loud that she blew them backwards. And, you know, and then Utopian comes and he's like, hey, I heard what's going on, but you can't. And this is where we see his rules for being a superhero for the very first time. He's like, you can't do that. You have to control yourself. You can't treat normal people the way with superpowers is, you know. And he just gives her this whole lesson in life, and she's like 4 years old or 5 years old. So I thought, because we saw her at that stage, okay, she's losing control a little bit, but I thought we were seeing a relationship between the two of them, like a bonding, like, hey, daddy and his little girl. And then to come this far in the future and see that they are completely at odds with each other, that just surprised me a little bit. I was like, wow. And it makes me want to know, okay, well, we saw her do the scream and we saw her with the glowing eyes. What is her power set? And maybe that's a good place to bring this all in. Like, what are everybody's power sets in this family? Because it seems like they're almost all the same, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, there's definitely, like, so Brandon is closer in power sets to his dad.
Yeah. It seemed that way.
So,
almost the same, yeah.
And Chloe's is a little bit closer to her mom. So she.
But what's her mom? What's her mom's? Lady
I'll
Liberty.
So Chloe's is super speed, strength, durability, stamina, and senses, and she can fly. But she also has telekinesis and in sonic scream.
Ah, wow.
So
that's a big power set.
Yeah,
Wow.
they all have big power sets. So her mom, Grace, Lady Liberty, the speed and the strength, but she has durability, agility, sight, accelerated healing, and that's probably why she's going to live longer. But she can actually she's like a human lie. Well, she's a lie detector. She knows when people are lying.
Cool.
So there's, the different ones, it's interesting to look at their power sets because there's similarities, but there's differences as well. So,
Okay, and what about Utopian himself?
invulnerability, strength, speed, senses, flight, energy projection, those beams, telepathic immunity. So he's immune to his brother's telepathy and accelerated healing. Interesting, both he and Brandon have the ability to fly in the vacuum of space unaided.
Wow.
So they wouldn't need a suit to fly out into space.
Yeah. Cool. I have to say, like, as a place to throw this in, I loved the scenes. Like, one of my favorite scenes just for action moments was when Brandon was sitting in the diner with his friend, and then he could hear something, and not with his friend, with the waitress, and then he takes off, and you see him running down the alleyway, and he's getting faster and faster and faster, and he does the Superman thing, starts taking off his clothes, and the camera's behind him, following him, and he just runs and takes off, and whew, damn, that was cool. That was
It was a cool scene.
Yeah.
Really cool.
I liked that. Yeah.
Like good special effects. It just, I was like, that is a heroic moment right there. That's what when we dream of being superheroes, that's how we imagine it. Running down the alley, taking off our clothes, and just and up into the air. It was cool. It was really, really cool.
All right. Well, I wanna take it back to Sheldon here for a minute because I've got a few things to say about his beliefs. So he's very steadfast, very like my way or the highway, right? I mean, he's got what he believes and his rules and his mandates, and if you do not walk that line and fall in line, then you're out. And so I do think that part of that is generational, right? Because he is of the generation that the man of the house is the man of the house, and he will be respected. His rules will be followed. And I don't care how old you are in my house and you will follow my rules. And I feel like as generations have come along, we've gotten a little bit away from that. And so I would rather see more room for like mutual respect between adult parents and adult children, because you're not always going to grow up and see eye to eye and be this carbon copy whatever of your parents that they wanted you to be. It's just not who we are. It's just not how nature works. And so I don't know. I wish that there could have been like a little bit more room, or maybe they can come around there to be a little bit more room of like them being able to see eye to eye and have mutual respect for the fact that they don't agree on certain things. So, I mean, she very clearly is an atheist. He is very devout Christian, but I think you can still come to mutual understanding, like regardless of beliefs. And I get the feeling that Sheldon isn't really willing to compromise or like give an inch a little bit, and also kind of like a tick against his character for me.
Well, I mean, it could come around to what you were saying earlier, though, because he's 3 or 4 generations removed. Like, that is such a big gap that from where he stands, like there is no change. It's just the way it was back then, and it probably would have been for him and his son and his grandson before we get to Gen Z where we are now. Like it just feels like there's such a big time gap. I don't think there's a chance for him to change. He just can't. Like it's where he's from, things were the way they were. That was it. Even though he was very respectful of people of different races and color, he still was, like you said, I'm the man of the house. My rules, or get the heck out. That's it.
Exactly.
You do not question it. Yeah.
Yeah, and life just doesn't really like that anymore. Like people have kind of modernized a little bit. But yeah, that's very telling of his true age and when he truly grew up, I felt.
Yeah.
But I side more with Chloe, for the record.
I think we'll get more into it, but I think, especially when it comes to his code, especially, as far as the super stuff goes,
Yeah.
I think we really see him struggling, and I think it's really the only thing he's got to hang on to.
True.
And he's not learning how to adapt. I mean, I think they're aging slowly, and unfortunately they're adapting slowly as well too. So I think, it's one of those things where you can take it to the debate of built riches or inherited riches, and how people react to that.
That's a good way to put it.
Because, people who earned everything have a greater respect, and you have a different mindset on their kids who inherited the riches.
Yeah.
Now, like, we don't know yet, but somehow in the past they quote unquote earned their powers, and their kids inherited them. So you've got that divide too. So I think this series is looking at a lot of things on a lot of different levels. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play out, like changing and how they look at stuff. So
that is an amazing point, Jeff.
That's good.
Yeah, like inheriting money is the same as inheriting power, so that they're taking it for granted because it was just, they didn't have to work to get it. They didn't have to try to get it. It was just given to them. They're just born into it. So they don't respect it. They don't have the same level of belief in the importance of doing right by it as someone who worked their butts off to get it. Whether you're talking about powers or money, it's the same thing. I love how you kind of put that correlation between them. It's very cool.
So, we get, after she leaves, Brandon goes out to follow her, and we'll get into this more later because it's Jess's favorite scene. But we got the talk about their conversation about their dad, so we'll talk about that later. But that was a good dynamic between the two of them, showing where they're both coming from in reality. Looking at their dad. So but we do get Brandon heading out to the club to party with Barry, who I assume he is another. Yeah, he is Tectonic, so he's another superhero.
Yeah,
so
I felt like he was. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're well. That's what they said. They said there that he was out with Tectonic, partying. So, but you get this scene of them talking about the realities of their life, and in the midst of that, they're being mobbed all around them with people trying to take pictures and all the girls trying to get their attention and things like that. But this conversation was very telling as well of, looking at the realities of, where you are and who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, even just being in the party scene, like they were just ignoring everything that was around them. But I can't imagine, like, yes, the world knows who you are, they know your secrets, but there is still going to be the crazy fans that don't get to see you very often, and when they do see you, they freak out and want your autograph or want your picture or whatever. Like it's just neat to see, and they're just sitting there just having a conversation, completely oblivious to everything that was going on. I thought it was kind of funny.
It was. But I did like just kind of like setting that scene and kind of like letting us see how the whole lack of secret identity, like what part of what it means.
Right.
Yeah. So we have the brothers. We have Walt talking some sense into Sheldon, or trying to get to, and part of that is my favorite scene. We'll get to that, but they go to their headquarters. Their team is called the Union of Justice, and they've got this headquarters, but they've not really sat around the table since Skyfox betrayed them. But that around the table they've got these holographic images, which is what's behind me on the video there. But they also have all these war trophies of villains that they've defeated all around them as well.
Yeah, very cool scene. Like that. This is actually my favorite scene as part of their conversation here.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, we can talk a little bit about it here.
Oh,
It's I just love the correlation because we're all used to, if we're DC fans, used to the Justice League and the Hall of Justice and the Round Table and all this kind of stuff. And here we got the Union of Justice, and their table is hexagon shaped. You know, and every person has their place at the table, and it was just fun, all the little similarities, but again, very different. Like the picture that's on screen, again, it's a perfect, you look at the superheroes, like I love the costuming. It's fantastic for all the heroes. I just think it's really great design. I really am impressed with it. It was just neat. So we'll get back into it, because my clip is a fairly long one, because we get a lot of information in their conversation. And like you mentioned, Skyfox betrayed him. Like that was like, ooh, okay. Matt Lanter's going to play a bad guy in this one. Ooh, okay, like I can't wait to see that. Like,
Yeah.
but again, the intriguingness. Why did he betray him? Why did he turn his back on the team? What led him to want to become a bad guy? Like I cannot wait to get to these parts of the stories. I hope we see it. I hope, because this is all stuff in the past. It's all history. So I hope this show continues down that road of showing us half episode in past, half episode in the present. Very, very Arrow-like.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how far they get. I did have a few notes like on this conversation specifically. Do you want me to say them here?
Yeah.
Or
no,
is
fine.
that okay?
Yep.
I mean, it's kind of like high level. I'm glad you guys basically have picked the entire conversation to hear again, because that was a really great conversation that really kind of like sets the stage like for this series, because we start to see through Sheldon's eyes kind of why he adheres to this like strict moral code, because it can be a very slippery slope to slide down. I mean, heroes will quickly become gods or dictators, or they explore that in Watchmen as well. And so like those are kind of some of like, and I haven't seen The Boys, but I mean I want to, but yeah. So I like kind of like them exploring that concept, because I feel like it's something that our more traditional superheroes kind of like gloss over, just because Superman is like such like a Boy Scout, like, you know what I mean? They're just kind of like, oh, these are like the best people in the world, and they would never do bad things because they're heroes. But I like that they're acknowledging that we have this code and we stick to this code, and this is the reason why.
Yeah,
totally. And I think the fact that you mentioned like the heroes can quickly become gods, that's exactly what The Boys is all about. The main I can't remember what's the main heroes.
I mean, I'm going to watch it one day. I just haven't had time.
Yeah, I watched it, and I've seen the first season and part of season 2, but for me, I think it's just Flash, you were talking about it being dark and over the line, and it's just that too much for me.
I kind of wondered about that, Jeff, with that knowing where your tastes are. I thought, I don't know if you're going to want to watch that one.
Yeah, I mean, some of the violence I could get around, but it's the violence, the sexuality, and just the line crossing that get it from me. So I didn't.
I'm very curious now. I'm gonna have to watch it.
When he says sexuality, like they go way over the line with that. There's a couple scenes that just I'm like, what? They did that on a TV show? Are you kidding me? Like it's by far rated R content for sure.
Yeah.
Nobody under 18 should be watching this. It is insane what they do with it. But the main guy, Homelander, he is very Superman-like in his power set, and he does think he's a god. And the whole show is centered around him.
Oh, okay.
He's the public sees him as a hero, but behind the scenes, he's a villain, and he just loves to kill. He loves to hurt. He gets great pleasure in all of that. And the rest of the team are constantly trying to control him and dial him back a little bit, but he just wants to let loose, and
Well, and
it's bad.
There's a character like that in Watchmen too.
Yeah, but I think one of the slams on this series that I saw is like is not it's you've got The Boys, so why have this series?
I've heard that as well.
I think they probably came out pretty close to the same time, so one is successful, one not so much.
Yeah, but I think from what I've seen, I think they're looking at things in different lenses, and I think like you've had Marvel and DC forever and ever and ever. This world is big enough that you can look at the things through different lenses, and and it still be valid. So, so
true.
Yeah,
that's true.
And I think it's also what the boys, like, I do enjoy the boys, but I think the boys takes great pleasure in how far can we push things. It's kind of similar to the Saw movies. If you guys watch the Saw movies.
Yes.
Saw's
I tapped out after Saw 4. I couldn't do it anymore.
What Saw does is like, how far can we push killing somebody? How many different ways can we find to kill somebody? That's what the boys does, is how far can we take superpowers and show how truly scary it could be if people had powers. Because looking at today's society and how there are so many idiots out there, and keyboard, what do they call it? Keyboard, people that hide behind the keyboards.
Bullies.
Keyboard bully. Like,
I don't know what they're called.
Give those type of people superpowers, and you think they're going to follow the rules, become a hero, and want to help save Kitty out of the tree? No, they're going to be robbing banks and raping people and doing the worst possible things. And that's what the boys explores, is you give the wrong people powers, look what happens. And I think and it's a sad state of society, because with everybody having access to the internet, it's unlocked so many people's darkest crazy interests, and the boys, I think, kind of focuses on that, and people love morbid like that society. I mean, look at the news as an example. When it's bad news, it gets, that's all the news is full of, is bad stories. There's hardly ever a nice story anymore in the news. That's because they know.
Why I'm not in the news.
Yeah,
I know.
My major was
why.
broadcast communications, but I knew I didn't want to be in the news, because I'm not. I want to see the positive side of stuff. So
that's why I don't watch the news.
And that's the state of society. Is they know, like, the news and the media and the internet, they know that it's these dark, gloomy, shock your pants off type of stories that gets the attention. And I think that's why the boys grabbed onto that, and why the boys is so successful, is because it's got that shock value. This series is taking the same approach. What would happen if people really got superpowers in a realistic world? But it's looking at it from a much more serious stance. And I'm finding that I'm appreciating this. We're only one episode in, and I've already found that appreciation, that they're just taking a serious look at if people got superpowers in a realistic world, unlike the Arrowverse, where it was very comic booky and haha, look how fun this is. Jupiter's Legacy is just asking the question, what if in a real world?
Yeah, I like it.
And I love, Walter's examination, about, like, we see he has regrets about not stepping into World War II more quickly, and things like that. And that's something that we talked about on Superman and Lois, is like, Clark can't save everybody. Where do you step in? Where do you let other the other authorities take place? How do you get in? And it's going to be interesting to see how this group looks at things, because their take is different on things, that they that they value service and compassion and mercy, but they're not trying to be the ones in control. So it's going to be interesting.
It's a very interesting concept. So I'm excited to kind of see what they do with it for the rest of the 7 episodes we have.
I know it's unfortunate, because look at the discussion it's starting to open up as we're getting into it. Look at what we're starting to talk about. It is really.
It's a shame it ended.
Yeah. Like it's bringing out some great points, or some great perspectives on the world today, and it's cool.
Yeah. Well, shall we wrap it up with our final battle?
Yeah. So we hear that Blackstar has escaped from Supermax, and the Union goes out to face him. But I mean, he is amazingly powerful, because you've got this huge group going after him. You've got young and old fighting against him. And I mean, he takes out he kills 2 of the members of the Union. And it's like real heavy stakes to start us off in this first episode of, this is one bad dude that's powerful. So
yeah, and I think maybe, and this is why maybe a little bit I'm questioning if I should even watch The Boys, but now I'm curious. But I was not expecting, I guess, the violence for the fight scenes. It just was more than I'm expecting, and that's probably because it's more than I'm used to, because the shows that we watch, they can't go to this like level.
It's very family friendly.
Because it has to be, because of the network that it's on, because they, got their strict rules and guidelines of what can air to the public and what can't. But when it's a premium service and it's, it's on streaming and it's, for paying people, like it's kind of like anything goes. And I guess I was like thinking that, but not really like realizing that until I was watching it. I was like, okay, they can do even like more than some things that I'm used to seeing. Okay, here we go.
Yeah. Well, this is a good step up for you then, Harley. If you watch this, then you go from this to The Boys, and maybe The Boys won't be as shocking.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because this show.
I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but
this had violence. I didn't expect the violence in this one either. Like the blood and the gore and the how badly people were getting beat up. That was surprising. Mm-hmm. So
well, the tag on the beginning, how like it always pops up when you start to stream it, and it says why it's rated what it's rated, and it said like violence, nudity. No, maybe there's no nudity. Was there nudity in this one?
I don't think so.
Okay, so maybe maybe I'm thinking of something else, but it specifically said gore, and I was like, hold up. now I see why.
Yeah. Well, and just going back to that fight, like this Blackstar guy, I'm also invested in him. I want to know who is this Dr. Bendel? Like, why does he have powers? If he's a doctor, did he self-sacrifice to experiment on himself and give himself all these powers? Because you're right, Jeff. He could take the entire team on. It felt very much like the Infinity War with Thanos in Wakanda there, when all the heroes finally got up to him and he's just taking them all on, and not a group of them cannot stop him. And here's Blackstar. Everybody's taking their digs at him and nothing's working. There's multiple power sets. We have lightning and fire and super strength and super speed and laser blast. Like there's so much stuff being thrown at him, and he just bounced back from all of it and was beating them. And it's
it says superhuman strength, the dark matter heart that can project energy blasts.
Oh, that was the big glowing thing in his chest, right?
Yeah.
Yes, because he was going nuclear, they kept saying.
The flight due to the jetpack and foot thrusters and
very Lex Luthor.
Superhuman durability. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Interesting. I hope we see some flashbacks of him, like his story between him and Utopian. Why do they hate each other? What is going on there?
Yeah.
But crazy fun. I mean, for a first episode of a brand new show, I thought it looked pretty good. Like there was so much going on there. Like that's more than we've ever gotten in the Arrowverse. Like everything on screen like that at once with all these crazy superpowers. Like there was a lot happening in that moment.
Yeah, all at one time.
And it looked pretty decent. Like it wasn't bad. It wasn't badly done.
No, I mean, I think in a couple of spots it got a little wonky, but for the most part, I thought it was pretty good. Yeah. It was entertaining. There was a ton going on. I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
It was a long battle.
A true comic book superhero fight with a bad villain. Like it was, well done.
Yeah, it was good.
And I like, we got to see Brainwave, being separating his mind out from his body for a little while. Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of seeing his abilities, like he's got those mental abilities, but like, how are you going to do this? How are you going to fight this? So he's like smart. He's taking the guy's mind out. So like everybody else can attack the body. So I thought that was a neat take on things.
But it's amazing that Blackstar eventually got past that. And he's like, and then he grabs him by the throat, and Brainwave's like, oh shoot. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what was maybe the most surprising, was his continual ability to overpower each and every one of them, like at almost every turn. And then, in which it just becomes more confusing by the reveal at the end.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get there, but like...
Yeah, that's why.
Brandon... Like he's seen two of his friends taken out. Yep. He's seen his family injured, and his dad is like literally under the boot of Blackstar. And
Yeah.
he's hearing his dad's voice in his head, and he just snaps. Like, he basically kills the guy. I mean, like, there's nothing left but his lower jaw and his tongue, and
there's no
the
basically about
the
it.
back of his skull. I mean, he just takes the guy out. It's just like,
That was a lot of punching. Yeah.
yeah,
A lot of punching. But his initial, like, he charged himself up and then hit him with some type of force field around him when he hit the guy initially. It was a massive blast that knocked him down. So I was like, what are all these guys' powers? Like, holy crap. It's crazy. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
and then
He killed Blackstar, you're right. Like, I think, what? I thought this was supposed to be the main villain. I looked on IMDb. He's there for all the episodes. What the heck?
Surprise!
Yeah.
but I mean, his dad tears him down for doing it. It's
I know,
there's
not
no-
even like a great job, son. Great, you saved us all. No, immediately. Why'd you do that? We don't kill. What have I taught you?
Yeah, there's 1,000 ways you could have solved this.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't. I disagree. I think Brandon made the right choice, but I also think Brandon made Walter's choice, because Walter, like you said with World War II, he's like, how many lives could we have saved if we had just stepped in? And I think that's what Brandon did. He didn't want to watch his family and the rest of his friends, and maybe even himself, be killed.
Yeah.
Who knows how many more people from the nuclear fallout and the nuclear explosion that was apparently about to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I was still surprised at Sheldon's response, and I think that is what kind of solidified in my mind, like, he is a hard ass. He is never going to change his views, and like, you don't stray. Like, you are here. It is black or it is white. There is no in between. There is no gray.
Yeah.
You are with my moral code or you are out. And so I was like, okay, all right. I think had Brandon not done that, then cut to black.
Yeah.
Quick ending to the series.
Yeah.
But we have a final shocking moment.
Yes, we get they're back at the hall there, and these guards bring in Blackstar, who's
While
still
they're
alive.
looking at the body of the one they just killed
Yeah.
on the examination table.
It's like, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah. Because what does Blackstar say? Doesn't he say something? He's got some little quippy line there at the end.
I can't remember
I
exactly
can't remember
what he
what it
says.
was, but
Yeah.
But yeah, or it's probably something like, "Who is that?" Or is it like, "Well, looks like you,"
Yeah.
or "We thought it was you," or something like that.
Okay, so let's speculate. Was that a clone? What was that? Because it was Blackstar. He acted, looked like, and behaved like that was Blackstar as far as they knew, and yet it wasn't.
Yeah,
The other
I mean,
Blackstar's
Powers-
still in prison.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, like, powers and all.
Yeah.
I don't know. The thing is because I'm so, like, I don't know anything about this universe, so I don't even know, like, what to potentially speculate. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, a clone, is that even possible? That would, I guess, be the simplest explanation. So Occam's razor, says that would be it. But there's also, I mean, it could also be a shapeshifter, or who knows? I mean, like, pull out any oddball sci-fi theory. It probably fits the bill.
Yeah.
Did Blackstar seem like he knew more than he was letting on, though?
I didn't think so.
No.
Yeah.
He seemed just as surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like he's like, was taken aback. Like, what are you doing here? And why is someone who looks or looked like me
Yeah.
dead?
The fact that he's known as Dr. Bendel,
True.
I'm wondering if he's got a science lab somewhere, and like my guess is that he gave himself these powers, and maybe one of his lab assistants has kept a backup of his genetic code or something and is creating these things. I don't know. That's just my stretch because we only got one episode, so I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. It's very difficult to speculate at this
Yeah.
point. But,
Yeah.
But an ending I did not expect.
No.
First of all, I didn't think they were going
No.
to kill him, and then when he walks on screen again, I'm like, what? Okay, you got me twice in under a minute.
I know. I was trying to figure out. I was like, "What's the hook going to be like?" How?
Yeah.
Because while I was enjoying it, I was like, "There's nothing here that's got me being like, I got to get to the next one." I was like, "Where's the hook?" And there it was.
And there it was. Hey, Blackstar.
Pretty much.
Man. Cool. Well, that is it for our discussion on the episode, the premiere episode of Jupiter's Legacy. We are going to pause for our ad break. If you guys are new to the show because you've never checked out any of our Arrowverse coverage and you're just realizing, what? There's a Jupiter's Legacy podcast? I'm going to try that. We do have ads in our show. It just helps pay for the show. Sometimes you get one, sometimes you get two. They're only a few seconds long, so this is usually where we throw them in. So here you go.
Shape out an eagle!
And that is the cue for our favorite scenes, where we pick a clip out of the show that is something we really felt connected to, whether it was dramatic or funny or exciting, whatever. We pick a favorite scene and we play a little sound clip for you. So we like to play them in order of chronology that was in the episode. So Harley, you're up first.
I am up first. That doesn't happen very often. All right. Well, I chose, as I alluded to earlier, a quote I called "Carrying the Burden of Legacy."
Hey!
Just don't.
You don't even know what I'm gonna say yet.
You're not that complicated. I used to like that about you.
Why do you talk to him like that?
Are you seriously sticking up for him? Oh, of course you are. You are his perfect little shadow.
Hey. Hey! Don't act like I forgot what it was like to have him as a father. I didn't get treated any differently, Chloe.
Then why stay here? Why? Subject yourself to this every day.
Dad can't keep this up forever. Somebody has to be the next Utopian.
Why?
Because, Chloe, the Utopian stands for something. He's a symbol.
He's a
more...
myth. He's a myth. Dad knows that he should have been there for us when we were younger, but won't admit it because it's not the ideal.
Someone still has to stand for something.
No one can live up to the great Utopian Brandon. Not even Dad.
You know what? You're just jealous that he picked me instead of you.
I'm not jealous, Brandon. I am sorry that you think you have to carry 120 years of his bullshit so Daddy will love you again. You don't.
That's a pretty powerful little discussion, debate. I don't know what you want to call it between them, but
Yeah.
you felt like there's a lot between them in that scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it opens more questions, I think, because I mean, like we discussed earlier, I mean, she definitely highlights the fact that Brandon is trying to carry on the mission to to live up to the ideal, to be the next Utopian or whatever. But it also almost sounded like our current Utopian was not the original Utopian, because she said even Dad can't live up to the Utopian. And so I don't know if that was more a dig at her dad, or if maybe that's a clue as to maybe where his powers come from.
Yeah,
I think a dig. I think she's saying our dad has set ideals so high that he can't even live up to his own rules.
That he can't even live up to him.
yeah. I mean,
That makes more
the
sense.
legend's bigger than he is. So yeah. So
Yeah, which I think is true. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's absolutely true. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's
And-
Oh, did you have something to say, Jeff?
Oh, I was just about to say, and then he hears it again from his buddy at the club, like, you can't be the next you can't do that. I want you to be the next Utopian, but like you can't live up to that. You got to be
your own version of it.
Yeah, you got to be your own type of hero. So
you have to modernize it.
Yeah, it's what I like about that scene. Like Brandon, we've heard a couple times that he's too emotional, but I think that's the strength of his character because he is able to be neutral and see both sides of the story. He understands what his sister is saying, and he understands why and where she's coming from. But at the same time, he also is like, Dad set this rule set up for us, and it's good. It makes sense, and it does some good, and I need to uphold that. I need to continue his legacy because it's brought so much good to the world. And yet, I don't know. I think Brandon might end up being my favorite character on the show because he's able to see and understand all perspectives is what I'm getting, and that's why maybe he's so emotional because he struggles with trying to stay in the middle and please everybody and yes, you're right, but you're also right. Can we just meet in the middle and get along? He just seems to be that he's going to be the glue, hopefully, for his team eventually.
And I think the interesting thing is I see Sheldon and Chloe butting heads because they both have moral compasses and ideals, but they're so close to each other that they're butting heads because they're
too alike.
Yeah, they're too alike, and so it's going to be interesting to see where they go. So,
and he's the older one, I'm imagining.
He's older.
Yeah, because from the flashback, he was older than her.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think he's like wildly older, but
it's a couple years.
2 years.
He's
maybe.
definitely older. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. What do you got, X-Force?
All right. So this is the start of the conversation between Walter and Chell there in the kitchen, and I called it "Apple fell right next to you."
She hasn't changed since the day I met her.
Yeah, thank God some things stay the same.
Where'd Brandon get to?
Well, he and Tectonic hung out. I guess hanging out with the old man isn't as fun as it used to be.
Boy idolizes you.
He's stubborn and thick-headed.
Apple fell right next to you, didn't it?
Yeah, I guess so.
He's a good kid, Shell.
Yeah.
Kid has a lot of potential. Anyone can see that.
The world's filled with kids with potential. Who didn't make it?
They didn't have you.
Tell that to Chloe.
The rest of these can soak. Let's you and me go for a ride.
Where?
You're out of beer.
There's half a case in the fridge.
You're out of good beer. Come on, dry your hands.
I love these guys' voices. They're just really gruff. They got that really raw, scratchy, growly voice. Like they've seen a lot of rough action over the years. I love their good voices.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it because he's starting to get him to try to see the differences between the two kids and where he's going, and to, like Jessa said, to maybe be a bit more flexible and things like that. So I appreciate that, he's calling things to light to his brother, and I like that they have the dynamic that they can actually, talk with each other and kind of joke back and forth with each other. So I like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they have a really good relationship, and so I'm definitely looking forward to their continued interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's kind of like what I said earlier in the show. Like in the past, in the 1920s, they obviously disagreed on a lot, but something has kept them still with each other, still together in a good brotherly relationship all these years later. So, because I kind of, if you were to open the show with the 1920s sequences, you would think that Walter becomes a villain.
True. Yeah, it's true, but he does not.
So cool. I got a clip by calling it the Union, and this is when we get to see the Union's headquarters and hear some history about the team and what happened over the years. We got a lot of information here. It's a massive information dump. So we'll listen to it, and then maybe we can pick it apart a little bit, because we did touch on some of it during the show. But here's the Union of Justice.
When was the last time we all sat around this table? The team from the beginning.
60-something. Right before George. Before Skyfox turned on us.
You ever thought about why he did it?
I know why he did it. He's insane.
No. He was a good man.
He's a terrorist, Sheldon. He took the vice president hostage.
He thought he was doing the right thing.
Yeah, so did Charles Manson.
The Union of Justice. All these trophies, all the battles we fought.
Hell of a thing. From thinking you had a screw loose back in 29 to this.
"90 years. 90 years of fighting wizards and robots, and what do we have to show for it?"
We've made a difference, Shell.
No. Quicksand.
What?
The country's never been more divided, Walt. Congress is at a standstill. No one's willing to meet in the middle anymore. The gap between rich and poor just keeps getting wider. Kids learning active shooter drills before they even learn their ABCs. Nazis smashing up the streets, Walt.
Not what they call themselves these days.
Oh, they're Nazis. I don't care what the hell they call themselves. It's all sinking into the ground. After all these years, after everything we've sacrificed.
Doesn't have to be that way. If we played a more active role in helping the administration shape policy, then...
Like George, is that it?
George.
It is against the code. We don't kill, we don't lead, we inspire. The people of this country need to make their own choices, Walter.
Yeah, how's that working out? To this day, I still regret not doing more in World War II. You talk about Nazis. We had the chance to end the war a lot sooner. Save countless lives in Dachau and Auschwitz. Take any discussion of the atomic bomb completely off the table.
And then what? Get involved with Korea, Vietnam, the Middle East. Start dictating social and economic policy. And where does that end? And more importantly, who is going to stop us? It'd be the end of free will.
Well, some would say free will is what's bringing the world to its knees. The days of making a difference by stopping supervillains are over, Sheldon. Now just memorabilia. Nostalgia. The real evil today is less black and white. Not bootleggers or gangsters. It's corrupt corporations, politicians. The quiet guy at work no one talked to who just bought an automatic rifle.
So you're saying the code doesn't apply anymore, is that it?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, isn't all this starting to feel a little repetitive? And do you really think just putting away bank robbers is going to make the world a safer, better place?
Yeah, see what I mean? There's a lot there.
There's a lot there.
Let's see if I can think of a couple points. First of all, he says they haven't had the team together since 1960. And it's whatever, 2040 now. Like, they have not been fighting as a group. The Union of Justice has been around for a long, long time.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've been fighting together, but they haven't, like...
Or I guess the original team.
Yeah. But they haven't like met and been like a team, like they're meeting, discussing stuff. It's just let's go respond to an event or whatever. So
right. And then they mentioned Skyfox, and he took the vice president hostage. So I wonder if he killed them or what happened there, because Brainwave was like, he's insane. He said, no, he's just picked a bad path. So I'm wondering if we're going to see Skyfox kind of lose it.
Yeah,
like have a mental break or something, because we don't know what his power set is. Maybe something happens to him. There's a lot. And then they talk about Nazis, and they compares how Nazis back then are the same as the Nazis now. They're just not called Nazis, but there's a lot of people acting and behaving the same. Like that was a deep discussion.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they both like they agree in some ways, but then they kind of like it's interesting like how the path goes, because it comes from like we have a code for a reason to like I don't want times to change, or but maybe some things should change. And it was an interesting way that they kind of like showed both sides, but almost do kind of cast like Walt's opinion like as almost like vaguely villainous, when really a lot of what he's suggesting, not that I'm agreeing or supporting anything he's saying, but like of modernizing things. And Sheldon's point is that that's the part that's dangerous, which is interesting, but it does again like give better insight into his character and why he's the way he is, and very rigid and very things must be this way.
Yeah. I think Walt's kind of playing devil's advocate in some ways to try to break him out of where he's at and get him to look beyond things and not necessarily go to extremes, but look beyond the where we are. Because I like I said at the beginning, I think Shell is looking at where the world is now, and he's comparing it to where it was where he was in the 20s. And he's seeing these things, and he's like, history's repeating, and we could that kind of stuff. And so to kind of break him out, to say, yeah, there's things that are the same, but there's things that are different, and kind of to break him out of that thinking, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I would think Walter, because we're seeing that Sheldon hasn't been able to change, but it seems like Walter's been able to understand the changing of time and society over the years. He seems to understand it a little bit more and sees different ways that they should be behaving and reacting.
Yeah.
So yeah. It's in just a few of these conversations and these clips that we're playing, like this dialogue has built some depth to the show, and we're only one episode in, because it's got us discussing these things. But there's just this depth between these characters that I hope we get to see how we got to this point through the flashbacks and through the history and stuff. So I'm looking forward to more for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool, guys. Well, I'm just going to remind you about the Patreon. This is where you can support the show through monetary means, and maybe a different angle to look at it is you're getting this podcast for free, essentially. It's the three of us put in a lot of hours of work, watching the shows, writing our notes, producing the show, recording, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of hours of work every week, and supporting the show with a monthly donation is just a way of you guys saying thanks. It's not that you're paying for content. You're not buying content. It's a way of you saying thanks for all your hard work. Here's some change to whatever. So that's a different way you guys can look at Patreon. This is how you can support the show.
If you'd like to support our podcast, you can do so at our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/tomorrowslegends.
Feedback! It is feedback time, and we did manage to get in one voicemail. So we know we got one listener checking the show out with us. Let's see what Perry White has to say. Old faithful Perry White.
Hey, members of the Union of Justice, Vanguard is here for feedback for the first episode of Jupiter's Legacy, titled By Dawn's Early Night. Well, I figured since we are doing a new and different show, I'd give myself a new and different name to sort of play upon the sort of virtuosic, if that's a word, nature of what this show feels like. So Vanguard feels appropriate for me, and obviously they all are members of the Union of Justice, so I guess that's who we are too. Anyway, I just wanted to offer some feedback on the first episode. This is probably one of the only shows that I've sort of watched where I went in totally and absolutely flat-footed. I didn't know anything about the source material. I didn't know anything about the characters through any means, and quite honestly, I didn't even know who was in the show until I turned it on and started watching. I guess I have Martin the Flash and you guys to thank for basically getting involved in a show that I had absolutely nothing that I knew about it, but here we are.
Nice.
Anyway, my first and initial thoughts were I thought some of the sort of fight scenes and CGI superhero qualities of the show, quite frankly, looked a tad cheesy. And obviously, without knowing anything about the show, I don't know if that was sort of on purpose. I don't know if that was sort of the budget that they had to work with on Netflix or whatever the case may be. But it is what it is. I will tell you, though, what I really like and appreciate about this show so far. If you know anything about me, you know one of my biggest issues with superhero shows and the protagonists in general is that quite often, and most often, our heroes are folks who only react to sort of the evil or the manifestation of evil in their world. Very rarely, save for maybe, well, to be honest, I can't really think of too many instances where there's been the question of, should our superheroes be doing more, without the thought and possibility of, oh no, they're going to become the Dark Justice League, right? And that may very well be sort of the rabbit hole that we may be going down with this show. But I do like the argument, I do like the philosophical discussion about superheroes and what they do and should they be doing more. My absolute favorite scene of the entire first episode was the conversation between Sheldon and Walter, Utopian and Brainwave, about their philosophical differences and how strongly that Sheldon holds on to the code, and I completely understand it. If you don't have that code, if you don't have that sort of guiding principle with the apparent powers and resources that he has and they have available to them, it would be incredibly easy to sort of abuse those powers and do things for personal gain or whatever the case may be. But I do like Brainwave's argument about, well, we've lived by that code for a century, and what has it gotten? The world seems to be in a much different and darker place, and I just love, and I have to assume and hope that that is sort of the philosophical question that this series is going to explore. And if that's the case, I'm all aboard for it. Again, I know it's not a cartoon, but I know it's sort of like a superhero show, and you're going to have the elements of the fantastical and all those things. But when it comes right down to it, that philosophical difference is what I really am looking forward to this show exploring. And I am really happy about that. beyond that, watching the show, it was kind of interesting to me because, again, coming into it flat-footed and not knowing much of anything about the characters, it was really interesting to watch this first episode and to try to make a determination about who, as a member of the audience, am I supposed to see this show through? Who essentially on the show or in the series is supposed to be sort of the viewpoint for the audience? And quite frankly, it was kind of difficult to pinpoint. Obviously, in the very beginning, you would think it would be Sheldon, aka Utopian, because he's quote unquote sort of the Superman sort of character for this series, and it would seem obviously critical that we would sort of that the audience would sort of view the show through his eyes. But obviously, when you bring in the generational aspect of it, having his kids involved in the show, then it's like, well, am I supposed to view this show through the eyes of Paragon, which is, good Lord, man, talk about a name with a bunch of burdens attached to it. But are we supposed to see the show through his eyes, or are we supposed to see the show through his sister's eyes? And so what I like about it is, not knowing much of anything about it, I can sort of pick and choose sort of how I want to see the show, how I want to view this series. And I haven't, it's not necessarily picking a favorite, it's just picking a viewpoint. And I like the flexibility or the ability of having time to sort of figure out who that is going to be for me. Cool. Anyway, those are my initial thoughts and feelings. I sort of really did appreciate, even though I thought the fight scene at the end, a lot of the elements of it looked a little bit cheese, but I do like the ethical dilemma that was highlighted by how the fight was concluded. And like I said before, that's something that's a really sort of meaty thing that I'm looking forward to this show diving into and sort of picking apart, and I look forward to that. Anyway, this has been Perry White, aka Vanguard, making a deadline for the first episode, and I'm intrigued and interested in seeing how the rest of this goes. In terms of my whelm meter, I will say that I was properly whelmed by the first episode, and I look forward to the rest. Anyway, I'm out.
Well,
Properly
Vanguard,
whelmed,
what's that, Harley?
I just said properly whelmed.
Properly whelmed, yeah. A Vanguard, I like it. That goes right along with my Cyberhawk, so we'll take the fight with the Union together there, Vanguard. Excellent thoughts. I really like how you were able to watch the show despite a few initial hiccups of it. Oh, maybe not having the best effects, or having, just the way it was filmed might be a little bit cheesy, but you're able to pull yourself out of that and still appreciate the story that they're trying to tell by giving us this perspective and consequences and stuff of their actions. Like, I love that you're just able to look at it and go, yeah, there's a dilemma here with giving people superpowers and what do you do with that? It's cool. I just really, really appreciate your thoughts, and I'm glad that you're engaged enough that you're looking forward to watching this one with us, because it'll be cool to see what you think week to week.
Yeah, definitely. And I liked his point about trying to find the viewers, eyes in the series of like, who are we looking at, at events through? And yeah, it's like, I don't know yet. Because
that's an excellent point, because you could look at it through Brendan's eyes. I understand why he's reacting the way he is, or I can understand Sheldon. If I was born in 1920, I get it. It really gave you the option of who to follow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of like that it's almost like you can choose which character you maybe, I mean, not like necessarily like identify with. I mean, because, we'll all identify with like different characters, but that was an interesting point of like, there is always a character that's basically the audience's, and so, it's not fully fleshed out. Although I'm leaning towards Brandon at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the standout for me right now. for sure. But part of me, being the age I'm at, I can still understand parts of Sheldon because I have some of that old-fashionedness in me about certain ways that we should behave as people in society. And I understand his perspective too. So it's
I understand his perspective. I just don't always agree with it.
Yeah, and I do with some of it. Yeah, with some parts, but
some parts. Yeah.
So it'll be cool to see how they carry this forward, and then I'll be like throwing the question or the thought out there right now is to see why didn't the show get to continue? Why is it only 8 episodes? Because does this story continue to develop and get us really deep into discussion with these characters, or does it drop the ball somewhere along the way and we just never get the payoff that we're hoping for with the ideas that they've already opened up?
Yeah, that's I think what'll be interesting to see. Like, did they really just cancel it because it was kind of like a market share thing? They didn't want to invest to continue competing with the boys, or
not enough viewers.
Or was it just not, or was the show kind of half baked? So.
Yeah, I don't know, because like Netflix has had a run of like, fans like it, but they still cancel it type shows.
True.
So, we just don't know. So,
well, what does Netflix consider a hit? Like, does anyone know what viewership numbers are for any of their shows?
Streaming is complicated.
Yeah. So that's what I mean.
Don't
like
know how that
do they
works.
Base it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
I'm
assuming they have some sort of like internal metrics for like watch time and how many people like actually completed an episode or completed the series, or I'm just thinking of like how I would measure it. Like if I were executive or in charge of like marketing or community or whatever at Netflix, like how would I kind of measure this a little bit?
Yeah.
So I would assume kind of probably the same way most YouTube creators run their own channels. How many paying customers they have, and of that pot, how many people are watching this particular show, and then what are people saying about it, like social listening and stuff. So
yeah.
I don't know.
Okay, cool. See, I mean, the fact that it's got us talking like this means it's a good start.
I think it's a good start. Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see where it goes.
Yeah.
Cool. It's just we'll just call it a limited series. Because it was limited
run.
Yeah.
Well, I hope there's not a massive cliffhanger at the end.
I know. I've been wondering that. I'm like, is this going to end on a cliffhanger?
Yeah. I've when I'm looking on the wiki and not like.
Yeah.
I know. You got to be careful.
Yeah, because like I'm scrolling way past the character like information to get to the power section, so that it's down at the bottom, so I'm not looking at the other stuff. So
when so and so dies at the end, no. Cool, guys. Well, thanks, Vanguard, for your thoughts. We look forward to hearing more. For those of you that want to catch up to us and get on the show with us, then start watching it and send in your thoughts, and this is how you do that.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to tomorrowslegendspodcast@gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter @tomorrowslegends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/tomorrowslegends and become part of the community.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we pretty much just said all of our sign-off thoughts in the end of the discussion there. So
yeah.
I don't know what else to add to that, but it's 8 weeks straight because it is on Netflix. We don't have to worry about any breaks in network coverage or anything like that, so it'll be just based on us being available every week, but I think we're going to try to do 8 in a row, right?
Yep.
That's the plan.
Okay. 8 Fridays in a row, and then after that, we'll see if any Superman Lois news has broken, so we have an idea when that's coming back. And if it isn't coming back for a while, then we're going to try to maybe squeeze in the Tomorrow People for a summer event.
Yeah, it just depends. I mean, that's a 22 episode series, so we got to look and see,
I might need a break from during that one if we do jump into 22 episodes.
Yeah.
Well, 22 weeks straight is a lot.
Yeah, we may have to do we could do
11 and 11.
do part 1 and part 2. Yeah, so.
Yep, stuff to discuss. We'll see.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we got to find out about Superman Lois first, then we'll know.
Yeah, definitely.
Then we'll have an
True.
Alrighty, guys. Well, thanks for joining us on the new show. This is Cyberhawk signing off.
And this is Harley Quinn. I'm out.
And this is the Deacon. So say we all.
Guess I need a new name.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, HBO, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network. Be sure to check out our partner shows, The Mandalore and Dive into DC, covering your favorite Star Wars and DC Comics properties. Thanks for listening.
We're also not affiliated with Amazon Prime or Netflix.
Yeah.